I believe we have Dr. Samuel Kebreab joining us, waiting in the wings here. Samuel joins us from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He is a disciple-making movement trainer and coach and a mission researcher. He is the partnership director for the Horn of Africa for Partners International and is the director of Life and Light Ministry. So we welcome Samuel today to share how collecting data that was relevant and accurate on UPGs and sharing it to churches and ministries led to mobilization of these churches and ministries to engage with those UPGs with the gospel. This produced fruit in disciples and churches being multiplied. So we trust this case study will inspire us all to move from data to engagement to fruit. Welcome, Dr. Samuel.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, everyone, and I'm so glad to be amongst you. And as Dan has said, my presentation will be a case study in Africa from data to engagement and fruit. Well, perhaps I would like to start with a brief story on how I came to be in UPG and UUPG research, as it will help to give background to my presentation. Also, I'd like to kind of, from the outset, I'd like to define what I mean by unreached people groups and unengaged and unreached people groups. By UPG, I mean those people groups that have 2% evangelical believers. And when I use the term unengaged and unreached people group, it's those unreached people group that, as far as we are aware, there is no intentional effort to make disciples among these people with the intention of seeing a church planting movement. So whenever I use UPG or UUPG, I hope you'll understand. So my personal journey, before I joined my church to lead a church planting effort that was started among one of the people groups, unreached people groups found in Ethiopia 23 years ago, I had the opportunity to be involved in a very large community-based mental health research as a medical doctor. So the Lord, in his own way, helped me to use these skills for the work among the UPGs. Serving with my church as an outreach coordinator and leading the field work exposed me not only to the condition of the unreached people groups that we were trying to reach, but also for other people groups that no one was engaging to reach them. And one particular unengaged and unreached people groups, which for security reason I will call the Gabe people, had a population of about 50,000, and it was completely forgotten. And little was known about them. The government, for some reason, did not include them in the people group list of Ethiopia. When we found out that there was no one working to reach them, I wanted our church to engage in reaching them. But since we have limited resource, my church was not willing to start work among them. So while praying and thinking about the Gabe people, my research background kicked in, and I began to have this thought of doing a more comprehensive study to find out who the UPGs are in Ethiopia. I thought that would be a very helpful thing to do, to come up with a list of UPGs. I thought it would be a tool to help mobilize many churches in Ethiopia to engage in reaching them. Then, with collaboration of known national mission agencies like the Great Commission of Ethiopia, which is also known globally as the CRU, and other denominations, knowledgeable people, we started to do a survey through a means of questionnaire, interviewing mission leaders and field workers. And we completed our preliminary study of 1 year in 2010. Later on, we refined this preliminary study on Ethiopian UPGs using a research or a survey methodology we named Country Assessment Process, or CAP, which is a more structured and more comprehensive method that was drafted by Data Advisory Group of Movement for African National Initiative, which is MANI. And fortunately, some, at least Vili Bota is here amongst us. Him and I and others were involved in drafting and creating this country assessment process used by MANI. The outcome of the CAP process, or the country assessment process in Ethiopia, was the publishing of a booklet in 2011, listing all the UPGs of Ethiopia, which were more than 30 at that time, with the relevant information of each UPG. This helped create awareness about UPGs and UUPGs of Ethiopia, and helped many denominations and ministries to mobilize resources and workers to engage the UPGs of Ethiopia. I know of one particular large indigenous ministry that decided to take it as a goal to engage all UPGs and UUPGs to reach them by 2020, calling their project Vision 2020. And they had sent hundreds of national workers to engage them with DMM. And since then, I have been informed by the director of this indigenous ministry that this the outcome of this engagement has changed the category of some people groups that have small population from becoming, from the category of UPG. They have now called rich people groups, having evangelical believers more than 2%. So we praise the Lord for this kind of research has helped at least to reach some of the 30 people groups that we were able to list. With this story, I believe I was able to touch a little bit on how data was used to mobilize Ethiopian churches and ministries to engage UPs and UUPGs. Perhaps one of the most important principles which I have learned through the country assessment process is information or data, if it is based on strong fact, has a potentiality to bring about change that leads into action. The change starts with me or with us. We get convinced that this particular people group is unreached, and that in turn will help us to mobilize ourselves and others, which will start a chain reaction of change that leads to mobilization. So I see that data or information based on strong fact has the ability to change and mobilize a strong movement. Therefore, acquisition and dissemination of valid and relevant information on UPGs and UUPGs was the first step in mobilizing Ethiopian churches and ministries to engage UPGs and UUPGs. And perhaps the next logical thing to ask was, how do we acquire this valid and relevant information? As I have told you, we had this questionnaire, which we started with, but then we use the country assessment process to refine it more and to go deeper. And we found this country assessment process to be very, very useful, because it is easy to apply and inexpensive. In our case in Ethiopia, the total amount of money that we used for the country assessment process was $300 US, because it's required. It is a kind of validation. It's not something which starts from scratch. The research something that starts from scratch, but it's a kind of validation and updates on existing ethno-linguistic people group information, namely found Joshua Project, peoplegroups.org, Ethnologue, FTT, Vision 59. Those data, those big, projects, people groups, and ethno-linguistic people groups that are in their list. So we try to validate and possibly update those informations. And it relies also primarily on local knowledge and resources to update the information. And the people that do this assessment are nationals. Of course, there were also expatriates that live in the nation that have very variety of expertise, the nationals or the expatriates, consisting mission practitioners, anthropologists, demographers, linguists, church planters that have some knowledge about the people groups in Ethiopia. And then what we assessed was one, the ethno-linguistic features. The aim was to update name, people cluster, people group cluster, and primary language. And then the demography, the population number, percentage of Christian adherents, percentage of evangelical Christians. And the third was the ministry update, whether there is gospel resources that are available in their language, whether there is a church of the people with a strong Catholic work to read the people group, and etc. In addition to coming up with a list of UPG informations and what needs to be done, the country assessment process had two benefits for Ethiopia. Let me give you two outcomes of this assessment effort that has helped us in Ethiopia. One was CAP from the start became a collaborative effort and promoted the creation of partnership among the existing denominations, ministries, and mission agencies. After we came up with the updated people groups information in 2012, the organization that I was part of, and the same organization, the Ethiopian Great Commission, which is CRU, we started to kind of contemplate about one people group, which we felt was one of the, in the list of unreached people groups in Ethiopia. We felt that we need to come up with a way to mobilize the church to get involved in reaching this people group. This people group, which for security reason, which I will call the Hamo people, they are majority Muslim people, and the number of population was like close to 5 million. And the Hamo was the main people group in that region of Ethiopia, consisting of about 80% of that region. And the first thing we aimed to do was to do a field survey to understand how much effort is being extended to reach this people group and what was the outcome of the effort. So what we did was we traveled throughout that region for 6 to 7 days, visiting every town where there was a good number of evangelical churches. We sat with church leaders, learning from them on how they were attempting to reach the Hamo people and the outcome of it. And at the end of our assessment, what we found out was out of the close 5 million Hamo people, only close to 300 have come to be followers of Christ. And these existing believers, 300, were not meeting together or do not have a church that was worshiping in their language or cultural context, but were dispersed in the churches that were worshiping and teaching the Bible using the main national language, which was Amharic, and worshiping in the style foreign to the culture of the Hamo people. The Hamo believers were forced to learn the national language and assimilate to the main culture, and some even changed their names and took names from the Bible. One example was Ibrahim was changed to Isaiah, or something which is similar to a biblical name. And then we found out that we need to present this to the denominations and ministries that were found in that region. And when we made that presentation, the leaders were shocked because they were thinking that they were, doing church and trying to influence the people, but they found out only 300 came to Christ out of the 5 million. And many, in fact, felt bad about it, and they kind of, kind of repented about their failings and committed themselves to intentionally reach the Hamo people. And they asked us if we were willing to help them. So we began to train and coach their workers on disciple-making movement. Now, after a more than a decade of working among the Hamo people, there are now more than 500 village churches with more than 6,000 Christ followers. This is a very moderate estimate. I feel that it's more than that, more than 500, more than 6,000. And these are village churches. The meetings are not, big churches like those we have in urban setting. 5, 10, or 15 meet together regularly and do the function of a church. So we have now a large number of gospel workers from among the Hamo people and emerging leaders who are taking the lead to engage Hamo communities with the gospel wherever they are found. So this was one of the benefits that we have with country assessment process. And the second benefit was country assessment process, or CAP, created a culture of where an ongoing updating and validation of people groups information was promoted. It became a culture of a group of denomination leaders to come together and work on validating and updating whatever information that we have. After the first round of country assessment process was completed, a group was formed consisting of denomination leaders, mission leaders, experts in language from SIL, brothers from known mission agencies like SIM and others. We came together. Many of them have a background on demography, anthropology, missiology, and so forth. And we continue to work to assess the gospel penetration among every two people groups in Ethiopia. We continue to meet and work like a standing committee. And we were able to refine more the ethno-linguistic and graphic and the demographic security sensitized information. And we made it accessible to public because it was something that the government kind of reflected generally. So we created a website, peoplegroupsethiopia.org. The dissemination of this information was tremendous. It has mobilized denominations, churches, of course, but more than that, it's mobilizing a workforce, a young workforce from college, university graduates, committing themselves to reach the least reached from the people groups of Ethiopia. And we are seeing, people that have been exposed, especially college students, graduated students exposed to perspectives or Kairos and so forth using the website and the Ethiopian people group list of unreached people group, and committing themselves to spend 2 years or 1 year, depending on their commitment, to work among these people group. So we found out that this has become also a powerful tool. So all in all, this is what we have seen in our case, in Ethiopia especially, how data, which is based on strong facts, is mobilizing the evangelical community to reach and reach people groups of Ethiopia. Thank you.